So right now I'm gonna move towards the beginning of the session to show you where we have positioned our microphones for our Glyn Johns technique. And I'll stop it right here. Moving back into Pro Tools right now, what you can see here is our Glyn Johns techniques. Now the techniques is very interesting because it involves only two microphones, and then of course there are more modified version of this techniques which implies a third microphone generally used for the kick drum. But the default microphone techniques involves one microphone used as a mono overhead, and over here we have used an R121, a ribbon microphone, and then we used a large diaphragm condenser microphone. For these techniques we decided to go with a U87. So the two microphones have been positioned, one right at the center of the snare drum, approximately 4 feet away. And then what we did was measuring carefully the exact same distance that intercurve from the center of the snare drum to the capsule of this microphone, with a microphone which is positioned right above the shoulder of our drummer, which is this black microphone over here, our U87i. So these two microphones, given the fact that they have position equidistant from the center of the kit, they should give you an amazing representation of the overall sound of a drum kit. Now, even though they are positioned in a completely odd way, somebody might say, they sound spectacular. And we have, again, as I played you before, a very detailed mono picture of the overall kit. And then the job of this other microphone position on the right side, right above the shoulder of the drummer, is to pick up from this perspective the overall kit. So we're also going to have a very detailed representation of when the drummer does a general feel of a toms. So right now what I'll do is to mute all my closed microphone and let you hear only the Glyn Johns. Now Glyn Johns has all the other non-coincident stereo microphone techniques require some panning. I generally like to pan the side microphone and the mono microphone approximately 30 degrees one from another. I don't use a broad stereo spread with these techniques, but this is my particular taste. Anyhow, considering that we have only these two microphones, I'm gonna let you hear how greatly only these two microphones positioned in such a manner are capable of describing the overall drum kit sound, which is fantastic in my opinion. And then what we're gonna do is create a Glyn Johns modified version where we're gonna be adding in snare top only and kick in, so that this combination of these four microphones are gonna give us enough freedom to blend in direct sound versus overhead. So this is the Glyn Johns. So only by listening to these two microphones, we have our drum kit. That's our drums. We have a very detailed description of whatever happens underneath the mono overhead, and as well we have a great picture of what the sound of the kit it really is. And we're using two microphones. See over here in the shot, you can actually see where the U87 has been positioned. It's slightly below the shoulder of the drummer. I think we had to move it that day because that's where the microphones sound the best. Again, when it comes to microphone techniques, it's not a recipe. It's not 500 milligrams of this, a spoon of sugar. It's completely, I wouldn't say free, but it's up to how you hear things. So again, there is a general rule of thumb of where you should start positioning your microphones. But again, the key here is truly listening to what you're recording rather than just following a recipe. Recipe don't bring anything to music. This is art. We have to create something. We have to try to capture the true soul of the music and of the musician. And in order to do so, we have two tools at our disposal, our ears. So let's start using it. Anyhow, I'm gonna let you hear again the Glyn Johns throughout a tom fill so that you have another understanding of how great this techniques is. And again, you could use any type of microphone for these techniques. The goal here when you're placing the microphone is making sure that the distance is equidistant between snare to mono overhead and center the snare to whatever microphone you're going to be using on the right side of the kit or on the left side of the kit, upon if the drummer is a lefty. All right, I'm going to let you hear the Glyn Johns in another section of this performance. I'm gonna move it forward to the tom fill to let you hear how great this technique works as well with different toms pan left and right. Again, we might not have the exact same great stereo spread we had within the stereo pair or the space pair techniques we used before, but the definition we got out of this two microphone, it's insane. And again, having them slightly pan 30% left, 30% right, actually I modified a little bit, they are 40 and 40%. Again, we have the mono overhead, which is capable of describing a little bit more where not only where the snare is, but when there is a rack tom fill, we have the rack tom pan slightly to the left, and then the other microphone, the U87, which is on the right shoulder of the drummer, is picking up with greater details every time the drummer goes on the floor tom. So right now I'm gonna let you hear again these two microphones, and I'm gonna start adding in the inside kick drum microphone in order for us to give us a little bit more definition to the punch of the overall kit. Because if you listen carefully, what we're missing is the sound of our kick drum. So that's why we would start adding closed microphones in order for the mixer engineer to have a little bit more control over the direct sound of specific elements of the kit. So I'm gonna let you hear first only Glyn Johns, and then I will put in the kick drum microphone. So already 3 microphones and we have a drum kit sound, and it sounds perfect. This is a fantastic technique for you to use, again, if you don't have at your disposal 23 microphones, and it works great on any drum. Of course, for a specific genre, you might want to add a little bit more closed microphones since you're going to be working with those microphones in order to add a little bit more punch. But on a general rule of thumb, with 3 microphones, and again, they could be any type of microphones you want, you have described the overall drum kit. Let's see what happens once I add the 4th microphone, only the snare top, how great the kit will sound. So I'm gonna start with kick in and Glyn Johns, meaning 1 mono overhead as a Royer 121 and the U87. Again, the Royer, it's a ribbon microphone, so we're working with a polar pattern that is in figured 8. Whereas the U87, we have left it as a cardioid pattern. So we have the null point of the microphone facing behind where the gobos are, and we have maximum directionality towards the overall kit. All right, I'm gonna let you hear kick and Glyn Johns, and then I will add in the snare top. If you notice right now, we did use a snare top. It didn't do a lot of difference because Glyn Johns or this techniques is doing such a phenomenal job in capturing actually the explosiveness of the snare drum that having a microphone for the snare, yes, might help later on in the mix, but right out of the bat, we don't really need it. What actually made the difference was using the kick microphone, so we have a little bit more control over the punch of the kick, which for these techniques, let's say if you start seeing where these two microphones are pointing out, we're not going to have a lot of definition for the kick. So yes, we will be able to record it because again, the kicks will bounce around the room, so we get its reflections, but we're not going to have a lot of directionality. That's why generally these techniques, particular techniques, Glyn Johns, works really well with 3 microphone, kick and the 2 overheads. Actually, kick, the mono overhead, and the right lower U87, which we can call it the side overhead. Again, I'm gonna move to a section where we have a tom fill. The only thing this technique needs is just a little bit of kick. Again, let's start building up the sound of a drum kit. So let's see how the Glyn Johns techniques works in conjunction with proximity microphones. I'm going to start unmuting everything, but of course the XY and the stereo pair. So I'm gonna start by letting you hear only the closed microphones, and then I will add in the Glyn Johns. I'm gonna move towards another section of the kit. Again, Glyn Johns works magnificently even with proximity microphones. So again, the way this stereo overhead configuration is set it up will help you also to gain a little bit of the room tone. So again, with one overheads techniques, you get 2 things. You got a very good definition of the stereo spread of the overall kit, plus we get a little bit of room tone, which added in conjunction with proximity microphone describes our drum kit in a great way. So again, make a good usage of these techniques. Next in line is our close rooms, then we move towards the far rooms, and then we're going to start with a little bit of experiment.